Yeah, hello. Hello, everyone. My name is Dmitry, and today I present work on game dynamics that supports snacking. It's not a talk about food. It's rather about player behavior. So many theories around games focus on immersive experience primarily and try to keep players for hours in the play sessions rather than in short sessions or regular sessions. And this leads to a problem that players stay for long in games, and also they quickly saturate with the games. And many types of games would benefit from another type of playing or another pattern of playing. And a pattern that we found is called snacking, which is defined as frequently visiting in short bursts. And this is often applied to mobile games. However, there is no explicit time frame for it, or it's not explicitly defined how snacking is framed. So we operationalize it as a daily play session of 15 minutes. So although we know that there are mechanics that promote this snacking experience, there is no guidance actually how to apply them into game design, and also we don't explicitly know how which of these mechanics support snacking most effectively. So in this work we wanted to structure these game mechanics and provide guidance to games user design. So we first of all started out at looking at the industry, and we looked at successful casual games that promote snacking behavior. And we conducted content analysis of successful games in May to July 2017. And we looked at 30 games and filtered for 22 games. And deconstructed them using MDA framework. So we found five different categories of dynamics, which are rewards, completion, novelty, blocking, and waiting. And reward is often designed as a kind of a performance currency. Completion is designed around missions or tasks. Novelty brings new elements to game design, such as level ups or new skills that you can apply. Blocking prevents players from playing entirely, and waiting slows down the player in their player behavior. So we distinguish explicitly between waiting and blocking, as these are both restricting mechanics, but on a different degree of intrusion. So while waiting only restricts players, but still allows gaming, blocking throws out the players entirely. So after we found these five categories, we wanted to find how they affect the player experience and which of them foster the snacking behavior most. So therefore we designed a game where we could have a base version, and we could layer each of these dynamics individually. So we created a 2D physics puzzle game similar to Angry Birds, but with a twist that we use a two-player version. So it's still one-player game, but you play against an AI and try to destroy the opponent's castle while they also shooting at your castle. So for the different versions, for the rewards, we added a scoring system, three-star system similar to Angry Birds, and also power-ups. For completion, we created 28 achievements that players can unlock. For novelty, we created 5 types of weapons, 4 visual styles for the levels, and also 21 heads for the avatar. And for waiting, we created 3 power-ups that were regenerated over time, and players were only allowed to have one item of each at a time, so they had to use this item before they is regenerated. And blocking was essentially the baseline game, but the players were restricted to play sessions of 30 minutes for every 8 hours. So after 30 minutes, they had to come back in 8 hours. So we first compared the dynamics in the on the short-term study on Amazon Turk. We had 99 participants, and the players were asked to play for 15 minutes. And due to the time frame, we removed blocking from this study. We measured performance, player experience, and personality. And the key findings are that there were no differences in player experience. So the differences in player patterns that we gonna investigate have to be attributed to the actual dynamics and not to the differences in enjoyment. Also, the results of the study showed that the game was enjoyable but not tense, which was also in line with our intention. So after we found that the games were comparable in enjoyment, we conducted a Nunday study on Amazon Turk, and the study design basically mirrored the pre-study, except that we added blocking, and also our primary measures of play patterns were number of sessions, durations, and also inter-session intervals. So again, there were no difference in enjoyment over the course of the study and also between the conditions. However, there were differences in performance, especially on average scores and levels complete, and therefore we controlled for that as a covariate in our further analysis, especially for inter-session intervals. And controlling for score, we found shorter inter-session intervals for novelty and waiting in our conditions. And further, to inform how our dynamics contribute to the snacking pattern, we clustered the players into two clusters of snacking and non-snacking, and found that that inter-session intervals and the number of sessions clustered them significantly. So interestingly, most participants fell into the snacking cluster, but this was kind of intended because we used game dynamics that had to support the snacking behavior. So to further investigate which of these dynamics facilitate most this snacking behavior, we conducted a chi-square analysis and to find how each of the dynamics contribute most to the snacking behavior. And again, we found that novelty and waiting had lower inter-session intervals and contributed most to the snacking behavior. So most players fell into this play pattern. So novelty overcomes monotonous gameplay and draws players' attention and helps. And these simple elements such as visual design, avatar customization can sustain player engagement. On the other hand, waiting has conditioning effects by binding certain actions to an in-game trigger, and for example, like notification that shows that your resources are there, can trigger the players to start the game and establish a habitual behavior. So this mechanic especially gives the designers time as a resource to enforce a particular style of playing. So if you look, for example, at serious games or intervention games, most of them, they have a big issue that people often don't use them, and this snacking type of play could help overcome these issues and provide a sustained behavior. So in future work, we aim to evaluate this framework in the wild on mobile devices and also look at serious games. So to conclude, we identified, implemented, and evaluated game mechanics and found that novelty and waiting showed potential to promote snacking pattern of play. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dmitry. Okay, there's already a question over there. Two, actually.
Elisa Mexler, Aalto University. So thanks, Dimi. That's absolutely fascinating work. Allow me to come up with a maybe somewhat provocative question. Within broader HCI research, we've become increasingly interested in studying disengagement and consciously designing for non-use. In your work, do you have like a sense of which game dynamics might support kind of helping people disengage with the game rather than, snacking?
Blocking.
That seems pretty harsh, but kind of is it?
Yes.
Like, do you have a sense of maybe something more subtle, perhaps?
Yes. As I said, so waiting and blocking are kind of the same scale, but with different degree. So. And this gives designers control over how much you wanted to disengage players. So if you want to disengage them entirely, then you just shut the game down. And if you want to be more subtle, then you can remove, for example, power-ups or make your regeneration rates longer. So players kind of feel that they're still playing, but they don't, because everything that they can do is just watching how the numbers rises.
Cool, thanks a lot.
Okay, we've got time for one more question just behind, and then
hello, I'm Joe
Dennis
from the University of York.
set up.
Thanks very much. That was a very interesting talk. I just have a question about the use of mechanical Turk. So presumably you're paying people to play here.
Yes.
Do you think that has an impact on the kind of naturalness that they're coming back to the game, or do you think that's kind of controlled for?
Yes and no. So, of course, this was an experimental setting, so there is some bias into that, but we controlled for personality, and we looked if they felt regulated or if they wanted to come back due to the study, and the results show that they didn't.
Okay. But you're looking to sort of test this in the wild, or
yes,
congregate or something like that?
Yes.
Okay, that would be very interesting. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay,